Hey friend, I'm Danielle Damrell, and I am so grateful that you're listening to the Created Worthy podcast. This show is all about honoring the life stories of women from different ages, beliefs, backgrounds, and experiences. Everyone's got a story, and instead of getting stuck in the trap of unworthiness, this is a safe place for stories to be shared. On this show, we chat about the transformative power of creative processing too, and how we can utilize our God-given creativity with intention to heal, grow, find joy, create simplicity in the midst of our chaotic lives. So pull up a seat at our table because we are all created worthy. Hello, welcome back to the Created Worthy podcast. Today, I am joined by another worthy warrior, Gisel Martín. Gisel is a brand and business strategist and spiritual wellness coach that believes valuable impact to our communities begins at the intersection of business and spirituality. She guides entrepreneurs to get clear on their brands, shift to a leadership mindset, and connect with their authentic self to thrive with multiple income streams. She's a San Francisco Bay Area native and loves to research, do puzzles, cook new things, and create colorful spreadsheets. Her secret ingredient is customer journey mapping. It's an activity she does with her clients to communicate their brand to get clear on their business model, from the big picture down to all the tiny details. Her personal mission is to break barriers one entrepreneur at a time while building wealth, one fearful action at a time. I have had the honor of working with Gisel to get this podcast season all planned out, and she is truly a wealth of knowledge and full of actionable strategy. I am so glad we finally have the opportunity to sit down and chat all about you for the first time. So, my friend, thank you so much for joining us on the Created Worthy podcast. I can't wait to finally hear more about your real life story.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm very happy to be here. And my current journey of business and spirituality began, I want to say about around like 8.5, 9 years ago. I have 3 children. They're 15, 12, and 10. And when my youngest child, he's now 10, when he was about 18 months, I remember like sitting at the dining room table with my husband. It was like late at night. They were all asleep. And I remember sitting there saying to him and thinking like, I just like can't live my life like this anymore. It was just so much like go, 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 this, that, this and this, that and that, just like everything all the time. I felt like I was like in
Go
a
mode.
tornado,
Yeah.
like the whirlwind of the tornado,
Yeah.
not the eye of the tornado, because they say like the eye of the storm or the eye of the tornado is like the most calm. I'm like, no, I was not that.
You're like, I was not in the eye. I was in the outer part.
Like
spinning
everywhere.
Yeah.
And like sometimes we didn't know what day it was or what was what. And like we had 3 kids in 5 years while I was in a master's program.
Wow.
And I worked part-time and my husband worked full-time, and like I would wake up and go to work and he would stay with the kids, and then I would come back and he would go to work, and then I would take care of the kids and study. Like I wrote a 100-page master's thesis with 3 little kids.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my gosh.
I would do all of this and I would go to school on the weekends. So again, it was like a lot. And then I got to a moment where I got a full-time job at a university, and then it shifted a little bit, but then it was still more of the same. Go, 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 go. All this, this, and that. And so this moment was like one of the most pivotal moments of my life, where it was like, I really just like, I can't do this anymore. And like my husband and I really talked and had a real heart to heart. And like, that was like the beginning of us doing things differently
Mhm.
So I started a lot of personal development, like books. I started reading books. I started listening to podcasts. I started to consume as much as I could, find motivation somewhere, inspiration somewhere. And then
Yeah.
little by little, I learned to find inspiration and motivation from my own ideas.
Yeah. So
So,
the ideas that were planted and innately within you, I think that that's such a beautiful realization to come to is that, sometimes we spend so much time and effort just trying to produce and trying to get to some kind of certain outcome and produce and manufacture joy or peace or stability or like even just trying to survive, right? Getting out of that survival mode. But it's actually once we turn internally and we look internally that we can realize that all of the gifts that we need, we're
yeah,
already equipped with. We already have the answers to our deepest, darkest problems within us. We just have to clear that space out so that we can
yeah,
get to that place where we can find the answers within us. And for me,
yeah,
a lot of that has to do with like leaning into God. I would
yeah.
love for you to talk a little bit. I know that you do spirituality coaching. So I'd love for you to talk a bit about your spiritual awakening or what was your journey? What brought you to the
Yeah.
place where you had that realization of like, oh, actually, I can get out of this by whatever the answer to that is.
Well, not too long after that moment in the dining room table, uh, and after I started doing like looking into things and consuming things, things started coming to me because I was
Yeah.
looking for it, right?
Yeah.
So I somehow got on this email list of this woman's blog in San Francisco, and she offered a like a 3-month spiritual awakening journey. I think it was called like women's like live your passion, something about women and living your
Yeah.
true passion. And I thought, oh, this is really cool because I'm like looking for something like this. And then I saw the price and then I saw everything and I was like, this is not, this doesn't fit in my life right now at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even so, it's really good to learn about things like this because I'm like, okay, maybe I could plan for it for next year or things like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I kept on reading her emails, and one email came up and said, oh, I'm doing a sponsorship. If anybody would like to do some sort of trade, I'm giving away this scholarship or I'm sponsoring someone or people. So I think there ended up being like 2 of us that were sponsored. So I filled out the application
Wow.
and I'm like working at this university full time. And I had just been talking to a lot of different people. And my aunt had suggested, well, why don't you become a business consultant? Because you're really good at that and you have a lot of good ideas. And I'm like, really? And I've never in my
Yeah.
mind did ever cross that I would
Yeah.
be a business consultant or strategist or anything. So I actually pitched it to this woman who was doing this program, and she's like, "Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, I'd love to have you in my program, and I need that for my business too." And I was like, "Oh my god, okay, I guess I'm a business consultant or strategist." So it was like a 3-month program. I met every single week, once a week, and when I went like deep into San Francisco, like past, yeah, it was like all the way across San Francisco. And
Oh, so
um,
it was in person.
it was in person with
Wow.
other women, and we were all feeling a little lost, or I don't even know if lost is the right word. Maybe like we felt like we were not on the right path.
Okay. So like unaligned, maybe. Is that the
Yeah,
word disaligned, unaligned, whatever?
perfect. I think
Yeah.
unaligned. Yeah. Like we're on a path. We could see the path. But I'm
Yes.
like, this is not the path for me right now.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go.
Yes.
And this woman is an MFT. So she did
What
a
is
lot of
that?
different marriage and family therapist
Oh,
counselor.
okay.
So yeah.
Awesome.
So she also went through her own journey, but she didn't tell us about her journey until like after. So it was really cool. It was really interesting. So every single week was a different session. She did like hypnotherapy sessions where she guided us in deep, deep, deep meditation. Like not just meditation where you just like focus on nothing. She guided us to one was focused on the past, another one was focused on the present, another one was focused on the future. We did vision boarding, but not vision boarding like, oh, I want to go to France, so I'm taking a picture, put a
Yeah.
picture of France. It's like more of like, we meditated a little bit and she said just intuitively allow things to come out of you and what you put on your vision board.
Yeah.
And like that vision board has been up in my room for the past, I want to say like 8 years, like 7, 8 years. And I just took it down a month ago because I'm in another like transition phase right now. I'm
Yeah.
not transition, I'm in an expansion phase.
Oh,
So it's
how
more of like I
exciting.
kind of outgrew that vision. So
Yeah.
I have different visions now.
Yeah. Something I just would love to touch on because I think that inner work can be really, really healing. And I also think that we should be careful when we do inner work. But in your specific story, you had a therapist who was facilitating it. And I just like want to stop for a moment and just like think about that and talk about that because I assume that when you're going through things like hypnotherapy or um, this kind of vision casting, there are triggers and trauma that can come up,
Mhm.
right? Like that, especially when you're like specifically working on the past.
Yeah.
And when that would happen, I assume since she was like trained and she is was she a licensed therapist?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was a doctor, a doctor. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But
So she
she
had her
didn't,
doctorate.
but that's not something that she just public, like, that wasn't
Yeah. But it was just, she had that knowledge, which I think is
and the
actually more important
training.
than the title,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
actually having the knowledge of psychology and how the brain works and how trauma works and how physiologically, when we do certain things and trauma comes up, how do we actually release that? And so I've seen some inner work happen within groups that there hasn't been a therapist or a trained, nobody who's like officially trained in psychology around. And so it just kind of like unleashes all of these emotions, but there's no container in which to actually process it in a healthy and guided way.
Mm-hmm.
So I like when you said that she was a licensed therapist, I was like, oh my gosh, that is like such a unique and incredible miracle moment in your life because
Yeah.
it sounds like not only were you able to figure out what alignment looked like, and the opportunity was covered by a trade agreement and a sponsorship, but you were actually able to do it in a really safe and unique way in community with other. So were these sessions all in a group setting as
Yes.
well?
They
Yeah.
were they were all in a group setting, and then I think we had one or two private sessions.
Okay.
But they were all in a group setting, and it was a
Wow.
small group, like 5 or 6 of us. Very powerful to not only see and understand and feel and go through what I was going through, but the other women as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the first hypnotherapy session that I went to, it really that I experienced, it really like tapped into something. Like it literally like opened something. Like I could feel like my body was shaking, I was
Mm-hmm.
crying, I was releasing a lot. And if
Yeah.
you're going through something like that and you don't know what is happening with your body, like people could freak out,
Right.
right? And so
Exactly. Yeah.
yes, I do appreciate that I was with, not just appreciate, but I'm like so grateful.
So it was like protection, almost
Yeah.
spiritual protection in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was with someone who had the knowledge and the training and the experience, right, to guide me
Yeah.
in this like healing and transformation process. And yes, there were a lot of things that I didn't even realize that came out that I unpacked.
Mm-hmm.
For example, when I did the present hypnotherapy session, She guided us through like my birth, like me,
Mm,
almost kind of like a new like rebirth kind of thing where I'm like literally see myself coming out into this world. Um, and the feelings that came up during that time were very powerful, and I didn't really understand how much my conception and birth story really affected my life. And at that
wow.
time, I was
Like at a spiritual soul level.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
was like, at that time, I was like 34, 35 years old, and I already had all my three kids and everything. And I'm like, I'm still learning about this. So I'm a product of a teen pregnancy, and my parents, they were young, 17 and 18, and they really, 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 they love me. They loved me when I was born. Like they wanted me, but I know, and I have heard other people make comments of
Mm,
like how maybe that wasn't the best decision for my mom to continue with the pregnancy.
mm,
And sometimes
so
when people
painful.
say these things and make comments, they don't realize, like, I had an aunt talking to me, telling me something similar to that. And I'm like, I don't think that she realizes that she's telling me, and I'm the one that would have been not
Aborted.
here,
Yeah.
not alive today. Like
Yeah.
those things.
How
Yeah.
painful. And I actually had my daughter as I was barely a teen, but I was a teen. And I remember having people tell me, like, you can't be a mom. You don't know how to be a mom. This isn't good for your life. And like, some of them were pushing me towards adoption. Some of them were pushing, like, they were like, why wouldn't you just abort it? And I can only imagine how painful that would be for my daughter to hear from someone that she was essentially like, it would have been better if she wasn't here, or she like it would have been a better thing for me if I had just taken care of it. Like, how, although like that has nothing to do with who you are or who my daughter is, how painful at a, like you said, at a conception and birth level for you to almost, and tell me if this is kind of what came up feelings wise, but did you feel like you were processing being an accident or
Mm.
being a mistake?
Would, I don't know if I would use those words.
Yeah.
Um, this is what I saw and felt when I was going through the hypnotherapy. I
Yeah.
felt a lot of love. Like I felt a lot
Mm.
of love, a lot of light, and I also
So
felt
the opposite.
darkness.
Okay.
Yes, it was like very clear, because I know what it's like to feel like a lot of light,
Mm-hmm.
and then I also know what it's like to feel like the darkness, but it, in this sense, it was almost like equal.
Both
Yeah,
at one
like
time.
both at the same time,
Wow.
and both very, very powerful. And so,
Wow.
yeah, this led me to have more conversations with my mom about this, and this actually led me to realize that I hadn't up until that point understood the the definition of unconditional love.
Mm.
Yeah, and
So
that
you
was
were,
something that I hadn't even allowed myself to
mm,
feel unconditional love for myself,
mm, yes.
because it was just like packed with so much other things.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Giselle, that is really powerful. And I'm so incredibly grateful that you had that experience and were able to be in a setting where you were able to process through that. And it sounds like you were even able to carry that healing. Because one thing about healing is that sometimes we think like, when we think about healing, it's almost as if like, I just can't wait to heal. Like as if you're turning on or off a light. Like, I
Yeah.
just can't wait
No.
to turn. And that's not how it is. Healing is such a journey, and it is not linear. Like, it doesn't, we can't predict how it will be. But it sounds like for you, that moment where you felt both of the darkness and the light so equally powerful at the same time was just the starting point for you
Mhm.
to actually go have the conversations with your mom And probably within in that internal dialogue of like, oh, this has been something that I've been subconsciously carrying for my
Yeah.
entire life. And it's
Yeah.
been holding me back, probably holding you back in ways that you never would have ever realized if you didn't have that experience to kind of spur on what is this rooting from, right? Like how would you say that experience manifested in your everyday life? Like, did you have feelings of
Yeah.
unworthiness
Yes.
beforehand? Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Um,
Yeah.
feeling misunderstood, feeling like I don't belong,
Mm,
feeling unworthy of friends, of love, of money, of
all
like
of it.
always having like not always, but many blocks along my journey. Even though I am a product of teenage pregnancy, my father's an immigrant from Mexico. All my family, they're all immigrants from Mexico. I was born here. There's a lot of there's a lot stacked against me. And I'm the first one in my family to graduate from college. I also am the first one to have a master's degree. I
Wow. What's your master's degree in?
My bachelor's is international business and my
Yeah.
master's is international and multicultural education.
Wow.
So,
Wow. They
yeah.
work together
Well,
really well.
so right now what I do, I've created this, I guess, this life or this business for myself, or these multiple businesses, this like empire for myself that is a cross between business and education. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
definitely
so
want to talk more about that in a minute, but let's
yeah.
go back to you were in this program. How long was this program?
It was 3 months. At the end of the 3 months, we all did a presentation. We invited our family and friends. There was food. And each one of us got up in the program. There was like 5 or 6 of us. We got up on this little stage with a microphone and we declared like what our new path was going to be.
Yeah.
And so like one woman, she created a blog, like a web page blog. Another woman, like so she created a platform for herself to voice, to be an advocate for what, she wanted
Yeah.
to. Another woman said she really like wants to get more into music, so she played some songs that she wrote and composed on a guitar. And so for me, what I did was that day I was like so nervous and kind of avoiding things, and I was just pushing through the avoidance, because again, avoiding is one of those roadblocks of feeling unworthy.
Mm-hmm.
When we avoid things, it's like we're actually stopping ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I've learned. So that day I was at work at San Francisco State University. I went on OfficeDepot.com and I got one of those. I purchased some business cards that you print in 1 hour. I just put my name, my phone number, and I even
Yeah.
put entrepreneurial strategic planner, because I like wanted, because like at
Yeah.
that point that's what I thought my title was going to be, right? So I printed some cards and then I went to pick them up right after work, and then I went straight over to the event, and then I shared how, yeah, I didn't even realize that I had this strategic mind that actually helps people. And
Yeah.
before that day, I had actually had a few consultations with some of the women in the group, and like their feedback to me was everything to me at that moment, because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even know that I could do this. And so that day I declared like this is actually like my gift. So
You took
yeah.
back your power. You stood in your power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. What a
And I
powerful.
don't call myself an entrepreneurial strategic planner anymore, because people were like, "What is that?" And I was like, "I don't even really know. I just made it up."
Right. Honestly, what I've had so many titles over the years. I'm coming up on my 6th year in business. And truly, some of my titles, I'm like, I do not know what it means. Like I just threw something together. But that's part of the journey,
Yeah.
and figuring out like who you are and what you are. And it's also something that we don't talk about a lot with entrepreneurship is that these shifts, like your title or your business name or your brand colors, like those things can change, and they actually
Yeah.
should change as
Yeah.
you evolve.
Yep.
Because as you change and as your vision becomes more clear and your path becomes more solid, you see things differently. The
Yeah.
people that you're serving become different. The who behind the what you do is different. And that is, it's a process, just like healing.
That's
Oh, go ahead.
exactly the point of like when I realized like if it wasn't for my spiritual awakening and my spiritual journey, I wouldn't have launched my business.
Right.
So I didn't realize it then in that moment, but after that, like within a month, I I got a website under my name, giselmartin.com, and I just little by little, I still had a full-time job, and I just little by little started consulting, and little by little started getting clients, and then that was in 2017, like September of 2017, and then in July, August of 2019, I quit my day job and I did this full time. I had a podcast where I interviewed business owners specifically of Latin American descent.
Wow.
And I talked about cultural identity and entrepreneurship. And then I quit my day job and
What was your day job?
I worked in student services and managed like third-party contracts for San Francisco State University.
Oh, wow.
The College of Extended Learning. So I worked on the main campus, but I also worked in downtown San Francisco. I had some money set aside so I could continue growing and expanding. I created some courses because I have a master's degree in education. It was actually, I don't want to say that it's like really, really easy, but it's
Yeah, you can do
comes to
curriculum.
me easy. It comes to me easy, more easy than others to create a curriculum and create a plan and create all these things. So I created a marketing strategy course. I created a profit and loss, like financial course. Like, so little by little, I started doing these things, and then the pandemic hit in 2020, and nobody was hiring a business strategist because they couldn't even pay the rent. So it was a very challenging time and still got through it. So here comes 2021. And at this point, I was still creating content through 2020 and all this other stuff and still contacting people. And in 2021, the whole year, all the clients that I got and all the programs that I ran, I made the same amount of money that I made in my full-time job.
Wow.
So even though it wasn't like consistent
for you.
growing, it went through a little dip before it came up, but it was like a proof to myself that I don't need a job. I could do this, and I made all of this myself. And that was one of the main premises of me doing this on my own, is that there is a pay wage gap in the US. And unfortunately, as a Latina woman, we're like on the bottom or near the bottom. And if I'm going to get paid 53 cents a dollar, I'd rather make that dollar and make sure that there's two of us getting paid, something. Or the other big thing is that I have two daughters. If I continue to work in the workforce and I'm telling them it's okay for you to get paid 53 cents in the dollar, and for me, it's not okay for them to get paid
Yeah,
53
you
cents
want
on a
them to
dollar.
know that
So
their life is just as worthy,
exactly.
just as
That's
worthy. Yeah.
another like action, like a big action that I did to show myself like I'm worthy of this. The world is worthy of me and my skills and my knowledge and my gifts. And yeah, so after that, that's really I just like I've just kept going and kept going and kept going and now I don't operate as an independent contractor. I have a business partner, like my business, Nicole.
Yes.
And Nicole and I have a company, and now our company pays us.
Yeah.
And then, I also have a spiritual wellness business. And so it's really interesting that in the same year, 2020, when financially was not very good,
Mm-hmm.
that's when Nicole and I created A La Mode Branding Agency, and we launched it within 6 months. And then I created an Instagram page, but essentially I created a brand.
Yeah.
And the brand is called Glowing Corazon. Corazon means heart in Spanish.
Mm.
And I had been going through another bout or phase of more like the soul searching, and not like another one, but just deeper. I think I'm finally going to get to answer your original question. Like, it finally, that moment where it finally clicked was in 2020, when I was actually in one of the darkest financial times and everything else going on in the world. It finally clicked that my spiritual awakening journey was completely aligned with my business entrepreneurial journey.
Mm.
And that me feeling worthy to create a brand for myself, create a company for myself, create a living for myself and for my family, that had to do with the faith that I have in myself and in the creator, in the universe, in the divine, and that this light that I have within me is actually connected to the divine. And and so I do believe that we are all spiritual beings with divine light that are connected to the divine. And my trust in that things will happen or not happen is, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I just I trust. And whereas
Yeah.
before, that was very much a very scarce, a scarcity based mindset that I lived in. And now I live in an abundant mindset because I know that if something is not happening for me, it could be because it's not for me. It's better for me not to be part of it, or it's not the right time, and maybe it will in the future. And I have a more abundant based mentality and life.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting to raise my kids with with seeing them and like having tantrums, and to like I now have teenage girls, and everything is end of the world. And I'm just like,
But
it's
you have
not, but
divine
okay.
light within you.
Like it's not, but it's okay.
One day, we all hit that point where one day we can look back and be like, that was hormones.
I keep reminding myself, like, teenage hormones, teenage girl hormones, teenage girl
Yes.
hormones, teenage
Yeah,
hormones.
exactly.
Like,
well, thank you, Gisel, so much for sharing this portion of your story. Of course, I Created Worthy is for the who behind the what that we do. And you shared it so beautifully, and it ties so perfectly into now how you serve. So, one of the things I always talk about on Created Worthy is creative processing. Creative processing is activating your creative mind to process any certain intention. And you told me that puzzles, coloring, and dancing are your primary creative processing methods. So, just to put that into action on how you could actually utilize creative processing with the ways that you already create, you could use a prompt like the purpose of this coloring page is to process my next business offering or alignment or whatever your intention is. And I know that you've probably never, well, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, but you've probably never framed these ways that you create as creative processing per se. But now that you know that creative processing is just simply the act of tapping into your creative mind and pairing that with intention, can you talk to me a little bit about if this is something that you already do? Maybe you call it something else, or if not, do you think that you could have an even more powerful experience with coloring or dancing or puzzles if you were to pair an intention with it?
Well, the answer to your question is yes. I have done this. We do that. Like I do this. I
Yay!
actually,
A lot of us already do. We just don't
yeah,
use this
I
term per se.
I actually facilitate um events or virtual events
Yeah.
or groups like this.
Wow. I did not
Where
know
I've
that.
done vision boarding, where we activate our creativity, our well, I've actually learned a lot about in my spirit after my spiritual awakening. Done I did like a big deeper dive into learning and understand the energy of our body.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I really discovered about myself, or not that I discovered it, I already knew it. I just didn't have a name for it,
Yeah.
or I didn't real. I thought that I was just weird, but I feel things really, really intensely. That's why I've cried a few times here, and not only sharing my
I'm
story, but
the
also
same
in
way.
when you shared things. So, some people say that that's because I'm an empath. Some people call me an empath because I could feel things. I could
Hmm.
feel the energy of other people. And ever
Yeah.
since I could remember, ever since I was a little girl, if I would watch a commercial that was really intense, like I would start crying.
Mm.
So I and like, again, before I thought it was just weird, but now I understand that there are also energy centers in our body. I've learned about chakras, and one of the most I would say like a cultural, I
Practice,
don't even know
maybe?
what to call it. Sure, practice or
Yeah.
yeah, practice way of life is that I've really been connecting and getting in tune with the Mesoamerican cultures of like Mexico and Central and South America. And so I've been reading the books about the Mayan calendar, of Mayan science and religion, and I've been learning a lot about how there's temples, like there ruins now, but they were meditation temples. There's evidence of meditation temples in El Salvador.
Mm.
There's just a lot of correlations with the Indian and Hindu religions to and Egyptian religion and Egypt, ancient Egypt, to the cultures and civilizations of ancient Mexico and Mesoamerican
Wow.
cultures. So I've been learning a lot about that. And it's also, again, they were very, very spiritual, divine, conscious beings. And
Mm.
they made decisions and lived their life based on the natural cycles of the earth. So
Mm.
like they're very seasonal, like it is now, I think it's now known as called like the Farmer's Almanac, where like
Oh,
you
yeah, I've heard of that.
yeah, where you plant things and you harvest things based on the seasons. The moon is also on a cycle. Um, we live in a cycle every single day. The sun goes up and goes down and comes back up. Like there are cycles in our life every single day. And so when I started to learn more about this and do things to get more in tune with like the cycle of the sun, the cycle of the moon, because the sun has a specific type of energy at dawn. It has a specific type of energy at high noon. It has a different type of energy at dusk when it's like I guess when the sun is going down. And so I've been learning how many cultures in the world, not that they used to do this, like people still do this here today in the world. It just, they don't do it around me. I don't know anybody personally that lives their life this way around me, where they make decisions based off the natural cycles of the earth and the moon and astrology and the world. And so when I learned about the energy chakras of our body, and I started to getting more connecting more with the energy of our chakras, the energy centers in our bodies, that also positively
like an enlightenment?
Yeah. Like just my life. And so I discovered that in Mayan, the word for chakra is chakla. It's only 2 letters difference. And I'm like, it just like amazes me how like cultures and civilizations from across the world have similar words and similar meanings to different things.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, when those civilizations existed, was there like a world divine consciousness happening? And I'm like, let's do that again.
I love that.
Once I started understanding, I realized that we have a sacral chakra that when we are aligned or when it is unblocked, it boosts our creativity. So I started doing a little bit of experimenting with it. And then I started doing groups like other people like us, like
testing it out.
Maybe doing sound healing or doing a specific guided meditation just to open up or unblock your sacral chakra to open up your creativity. And so I still practice that today. And I also want to say thank you for sharing about the having intention about a puzzle or a dance or like a coloring page.
However you're activating your creative mind. So another way that I've personally seen you activate your creative mind is when you are creating those like revenue maps or any kind of system structure that you're creating for someone else. I have seen just how your brain just lights up and all of a sudden you're thinking in like this, systematic way, but also that's your creative mind at work.
Yeah.
Like you create systems, you create clarity of other people's chaos and confusion. And I just encourage you to pair that with if we pair it with a specific intention, that is going to be so much more fulfilling personally and will probably bring you just like so much, just continue in your path, help you continue in your path of just knowing that you're in alignment and finding and feeling and experiencing your own worthiness.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Connect with me on Instagram. My personal Instagram is Gisel's World. Because I came, Gisels and then world, because I actually came to a point where I realized that I am worthy to have my own world. So it's my world. And then a la mode branding and also glowing corazon, all on Instagram. Sign up for our newsletters, stay in contact. Send me a DM if you want. I will respond.
If you heard her on here and you connected with her story and her message, send her a DM. Screenshot this episode, post it on your story, tag us both. That is one way to show support, not only to the show, of course, but also to Gisel, and just encouraging her to continue sharing her story and her light. I am so grateful to have spent some time with you here today and for your courage and vulnerability to share your story. The way you inspire others through your commitment to grow and serve those around you has already made a huge positive impact on people's lives, including mine. So thank you for sharing your truth and sharing your divine light. You, my friend, are created worthy. Thanks for listening and tuning in to the Created Worthy podcast. I hope that today's show resonated with you. And if it did, can you do me a huge favor and go leave a 5-star review? This helps more listeners find the show and it expands the reach of the stories and concepts that are shared here. All the links and guest information are in the show notes. And if you're on social media, come hang out with me. You can find the Created Worthy podcast on both Instagram and Facebook. Or come follow along with my personal IG page, where I just share more about the real, sometimes messy life of your fellow worthy warrior. Can't wait to talk to you soon, friend. And don't forget, we are all created worthy.